Hello, my name is Ronnie, and this is my first video for my new blog on Steemit. So first of all, hello to everybody from Steemit. I hope you like this video and you comment on what you thought about the topics that I talked about in this video. First of all, I want to talk about the intro to the video. Shout out to Power Up for making the little Steemit intro. The rest of the intro is going to be getting worked on as I go along. I just put like an irrelevant video of me just sitting there with my cleavage out, but I will be changing that as I record more videos where I'm actually talking about the topics that I'm going to blog about. So this video today is about Mexico, which is kind of a hot topic right now because of Donald Trump, and it just seems like every time that there's some economic crisis or some war going on or something that people need to get distracted from, it's just a tendency for the media to kind of shift to the outsiders and want to place blame on them. So in regards to what's going on in America with Donald Trump, I think it's definitely due to the fact that they want people to focus on unreal problems instead of focusing on what's going on abroad with wars in Syria and the Middle East and all the other problems that people should be focusing on right now. I actually used to live in the United States, and I lived in the United States for a long time. I did leave the United States a very long time ago as well, about 7 years ago, and the reason was because I was dealing with a lot of problems and obstacles in order to work legally, in order to have a bank account, or just do the normal things that people need to do. I could not do them due to the limitations that I had on my visa, and since I was not a permanent resident. So basically, I got fed up with feeling like I wasn't wanted in the country, and that my skills were not useful because I didn't have a number, a social security number. So I was like, okay, if they don't want me, I'll just go back to my own country. And that is the reason why I moved back to Mexico. And I'm very happy that I did move back to Mexico because I love it here and I love my country, and I think the culture is so peculiar. And I'm just going to show you guys a little bit here in the background. This is where I live. So, I'm not complaining. There you go, that's a little shot of the lake. So, I'm not complaining about Mexico at all. Now, yesterday, my good friend Chad Sue, which is how I imagine that he says it because he's Australian and he has a British accent for some reason, but he made a video about Mexico and using other people's perception, other people's words, calling Mexico like a hellhole. So that's not his opinion, or obviously he's responding to what other people in the media have said about Mexico. And he did bring up some valid points, and I'm going to go ahead and link his profile in his video so you guys can check it out and see what you think about what he said. So basically, he has his viewpoint as an Australian guy, who's been living in Mexico for 3 years, I think. So, and that's a very valuable and particular point of view. Now, I'm going to give you the point of view about whether or not Mexico is a hellhole or not as a Mexican, okay? So actually right now I live in Paradise, but for the majority of my life I lived in a very ugly city that is very well known for its drug trafficking activity as well as violence. And at one point it was considered, like during the Iraq War, it was considered more dangerous to be in that city than to be in Baghdad. So I have always been really acutely aware of narcos in Mexico because I grew up with a bunch of kids whose like parents were narcos, and I, it just always kind of seemed normal. And it used to be where people would say, well, just the narcos are the drug dealers, the drug lords over here with their activity. If you don't get involved, nothing's going to happen to you. You just, stay in your lane and you'll be safe. And that was true for a long time, and that's how I remember things being when I grew up. But there came a point during the presidency of Felipe Calderon, which was not too long ago, if I maybe like 6 years ago. And yeah, it was like 2007, so maybe like, between 5 to 10 years ago, there started to be a lot of turf war violence, because you know narcos were fighting over who controlled what areas, and that created a huge crisis, in Mexico. And not just like in one particular city, like across many cities have been devastated by the violence, and it definitely has spread over to civilians. And there definitely are a lot of people that get killed, innocent people, children, who get killed and are affected by drug violence. Um, One of the scariest experiences that I've ever had was about maybe like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. It was this one particular day in the city of Guadalajara, which is like the second or third biggest city in Mexico, and where Chadsu is from. And I was living in Guadalajara at that point, and I guess like the narcos were sending some kind of message to the government. It was right before elections, I believe, and they basically like burnt down like over 20 gas stations. They set public buses on fire. They like set banks on fire. It was basically like over 100 different points in the city where like people were carjacked and then their cars were set on fire, and it was like havoc, and it was literally like so surreal. And I remember one of the buses was actually burning like right across the street from my house. So I saw like just an urban bus like up in flames in the middle of a huge main avenue, and that was just one of like dozens of buses that had been set on fire that day. It was absolutely horrifying. So I personally believe that the peace in Mexico is very relative, and luckily, I've chosen to live somewhere that's a little bit remote and far away from a big city like Guadalajara, because I have been affected by those types of activities, as well as just crime where people have robbed me at gunpoint, or I've had like situations happen that have to do with crime and poverty and a lot of the consequences of our identity as a drug trade nation. Now, where I live right now, like I said, it's like a little town, and we actually have a large population of like gringos and Canadians. Okay, dog. Um, and they all feel like they're safe here and that nothing is going to happen, but maybe what they don't know uh, geographically about the region is that we're actually like very close to Michoacan, which is a huge state, very problematic state when it comes to drugs and drug trafficking, because a lot of it gets brought up from there. So we're actually like in the drug trade route, and local Mexican people that I've spoken with have told me that there is a lot of violence going on in other municipalities that are around here, and I live in basically the mountains, so it's very fertile. There's a lot of farms here, like berry farms and other types of crops. So, of course, whenever you have that type of land, there's going to be a lot of people who are, actually growing drugs. So, I think people who say that it's not a problem, that we shouldn't worry, I think that that's kind of naive. That's living in a bubble. Um, you know, to quote Charitsu, it's like, are you gonna put a tinfoil hat on? No, are you gonna stop living your life, stop going out because you're like afraid of narcos? No, and that is the reason why Mexicans are characterized as like a resilient people, because we don't let things like narco violence or poverty or corruption or lack of infrastructure or the plethora of problems that we have in order to have quality of life, we move on from those things and we're still happy people, and we still, you know, we just, it makes us value every moment even more because we know that we're just so lucky to be able to live in a home and be safe and protected. You appreciate those things because you know that if you turn the corner, that might all be gone. So that's my opinion on Mexico. Like I said, I love it. I love living here. I'm a Mexican. This is where I was born. This is where I'm gonna die, and I'm always gonna rep Mexico. And I'm also gonna link another video that I found was very funny, where like all the Latin countries are mad at Mexico because we hog like all the attention and everybody's always talking about us. And you know, it's just because that's the character, the personality. We're world recognized for our food, and you know, it's just when you say Mexico, people already have like a very broad notion of it. So I think that that's awesome. It makes me very proud to be a Mexican, very satisfied to have decided to live here, to continue my life here instead of somewhere else, you know, because there's so much adventure and flavor and serendipity in life in Mexico, which is one of the things that I want to share in my blog with you and to really showcase that spirit that we have here. So I hope you like it, and I want to give a huge shout out to anybody who's Mexican and is living outside of Mexico right now and you miss Mexico. Unos besitos, unos abrazos, unas enchiladas, unos chilaquiles, un tequila, te mando para que no extrañes. And also a huge shout out to all the expats or people who are visiting Mexico or thinking about coming to live or visit Mexico. I'm just trying to give you the real lowdown from a Mexican, you know, and definitely hope you guys liked my video and that you upvote my post and comment and tell me what has been your experience. And thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to check back tomorrow. Have a great one.